everybody. Welcome to A Glass of OJ. Let me switch around my filter here for the sound so it doesn't have the room noise too bad here. Gotta get that noise suppression on. Gonna have to work on that on the stream to make that a little easier. So it's been an interesting week, to say the least. There's a lot of interesting things going on in in news. I've been perusing my LinkedIn articles. A lot of things about AI continues to be the case, and I think will continue to be the case for quite a while. And you'll probably see me bringing up an AI topic from time to time. There was an interesting there's an interesting piece also about Microsoft's recent Patch Tuesday. Apparently the biggest Patch Tuesday ever. So, of course, that's going to be headline breaking. And a lot of people very upset or surprised at the fact that, there's been several critical vulnerabilities, the most number of critical vulnerabilities discovered ever in a Microsoft Patch Tuesday, including, I forget how many 0 days. I think there were supposedly 3 0 days. And so it has a lot of people, talking about whether you should trust Microsoft, whether you should, place your trust in something that is clearly so vulnerable. And it just kind of, you need to stop and think for a moment about how big Microsoft really is and how big of a product Windows, for instance, is. And it's not just Windows, but it's several Windows products out there, right? Windows 11, there's Windows Server, there's a lot of Windows products out there. And there's multiple versions of the same Windows, right? There's like the, the 22H2, 25H2, like there's always some, extra additional feature release of the actual operating system itself. So each of these have their own code issues. And Microsoft continues, especially on the supported operating systems, continues to release its features, continues to release refinements to the operating system. That's the whole point of Patch Tuesday, is to release functional updates as well as fixes to code issues that aren't necessarily security issues, but also that are security issues. As Microsoft continues to develop new features, develop new parts of its operating system, that increases your attack surface, or it changes your attack surface, or your abuse surface. And so, of course, you're going to find more issues. There's also some people that are talking about how, AI slop in Microsoft clearly is the root cause of all these code issues. Now we're going to start seeing every Patch Tuesday become the worst ever. But Microsoft kind of has its ebbs and flows of issues. What's fun is that over time we find more and more issues with Microsoft source code, right? And I don't think it's fair or even good statistics and good rationale to say that because Microsoft's issues continue to mount and there becomes more numerous issues, that Microsoft must be getting worse as a product, less secure as a product. And I would actually argue maybe the truth is the opposite. What we find is that as time has gone on, there have been more instances of cancer that have been reported. More diagnoses of cancer. And you know what else has also become more prevalent? Cell phones. Cell phones have become more prevalent, and so therefore, cancer causes cell phones. We see this increase and we think that, oh wow, surely, we're becoming worse. Actually, what it may end up meaning is that we are more and more able to find issues that we didn't know existed prior, right? As we've gotten better at coding, as we've gotten better at looking for poor code, especially really old code, because there's lots of pieces of Microsoft that haven't been touched in probably 20 years. There's a lot of things in Microsoft's underbelly. As that code base keeps increasing, fewer people are looking at the really old bits of code. Usually the code that gets more strenuously reviewed is the stuff you're changing, and you look at the functionality and you review that. But we've been getting more automated tools over time, and we've been putting more in place in the industry to shift left and look at more of the libraries and the code issues there, but also in the code that we have. And most frequently over the last 3 to 4 years, increasingly using machine learning, AI methodologies to scan code, review it, and make sure that it gets fixed for release. So that has happened. Now, there is probably some truth in that Microsoft developers are probably using AI, are probably being pressured into tight deadlines, and are possibly introducing code issues that they may not have introduced if there were humans that were writing the code from scratch. That is another kind of logical fallacy, is that just like AI needs to be able to prove, AI products need to be able to prove that their product does it better than if a human were to do it, and you would not have made these mistakes in code had you used our product instead. It is true the opposite way. Whoever's making the claim has the burden of proof. So if you want to go through and say, hey, this is clearly AI slop, if they weren't using AI and humans were doing this, we would not have these code issues. Is that the case? Or maybe we wouldn't have found these issues. That's kind of the problem of detection and creation of issues. That's there. I also, and I think more interestingly, talking about Glasswing from the previous week, it also makes me wonder how much this Patch Tuesday was potentially as a result of early access that Microsoft may have had into Project Glasswing. Is it possible that Microsoft, had Glasswing access, Mythos access, and was actively working in that back in March, and was looking at their issues and was able to quickly fix some issues? That could be interesting, right? And then, of course, there were 3 apparent 0 days in there, which Microsoft has had their fair share of 0 days over the year. That's over the years. This is not anything new. But again, a lot of people are hyping, and a lot of people are, I think, concerned, and one should be concerned, and one should be inquisitive and curious about what's going on. But I think it's also wrong to go and kind of, especially out of ignorance, or not a lack of knowledge rather, to go completely the other way and say, well, clearly there's something wrong going on here. In fact, I would say quite obvious, or to me it's quite obvious, quite the opposite is true. I would be far more skeptical, or far more, I would be giving Microsoft more of the side eye, let's see. Oh, hello there. How are you? Got someone in the chat. I gave a Purdue lecture actually several weeks ago, and so they're here to say hello. How are you? And as people and as companies release issues to the public via their patch statements and their patch releases, it's really good to actually see that, right? I would be giving Microsoft the side eye if I saw a Patch Tuesday come out and they were like, we've got no criticals, we've got no highs, we've got no mediums, we've just got these lows. Or if they said we have no vulnerabilities at all to report. Really? Have we really done that well at coding that we can't find any possible issue, to report even? Hey, that would be great. That would be utopia to finally get there, where we fixed all the issues, and we fixed them all before release, and we've got nothing else to fix here, to clean. And that's just never going to be the case. And I don't think that should ever necessarily be the case, right? The goal in security, the goal is not to be impenetrable. That's what we'd all love to be. We would all love to be impenetrable. And I might go on my small soapbox for a moment. And more on a talk I've given before about bullshit metrics that various companies try to sell everybody, like risk scores and security scores and all this stuff. I guide people away from these magic metrics that are supposed to make everyone go, "Ooh, we trust you." Instead, when I go and ask my healthcare provider, my doctor, "Am I healthy?" It's the same question that executives are asking when they say, "Are we secure?" And it's the same question that customers ask vendors. Are you a secure product, right? Show us the security of your product. And it's not to say you're impenetrable. It's not to say you will never get breached, that you will never get hacked, right? Anybody who has been on the cybersecurity side of any company out there knows that the classic phrase now, and I'm starting to actually hate this phrase, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? And we kind of mic drop that and move on. But I caution people against these magic metrics, and kind of think about the way your doctor looks at your health. Your doctor looks at your health and says, "Well, let's take a look at your family history. Let's take a look at your risk factors and your activities that you take place in that may take place that you participate in that may be threats to your health." Smoking, drinking, sitting around for long periods of time and not exercising, or living where you live. Maybe it's bad air quality, right? Maybe going swimming in ponds or lakes that are very heavily polluted. There's a very skateboarding, doing dangerous, just overtly dangerous things could be bad for your health or a risk factor. They also take a look at what your stated goals are. What do you want to do? What do you want to get out of your health? What do you want to get out of your health? You spend so much time thinking about your health. Well, what do you want to do with your body? What do you want to do with your health? If you want to be a lineman in the NFL, or you want to be a ballet dancer, your health discussions with your doctor are going to be very different, because your diet needs to be different. Your exercise routine needs to be different, right? What you do or don't do with your body needs to be different. And so your doctor, when they take a look at your metrics, so they'll start taking a look at your performance. They'll start taking a look at your blood, your weight, your blood pressure, your respiration, and they may take a look at a multitude of metrics. But they're not going to tell you, see, your creatinine's at this and your blood glucose is this and this. They don't do that. What do? They match what's in the metrics and what they're seeing with your stated goals, given your risk factors and your family background. And they'll say, if you want to do these things, then I recommend that you get this. You maybe need to be on this medication to support that. You may need to stop doing this risk factor that may be impeding your ability to go out and be healthy enough to do these activities you want to be engaging in. We may want to introduce some new healthy habits for you. Maybe if you want to be a lineman, you may want to eat more calories. You actually may need to eat more, not less. If you want to be a ballet dancer, you may want to eat less than one normally might. So your advice you would give someone as to be secure is also different because of all of those factors I just listed. And so you come up with these themes of things to put in somebody's life or to change in someone's life to make them more healthy. You never go into your doctor and say, "Well, dang it, doctor, what's stopping me from being immortal? Doctor, I want to be invincible. And how do we do that? How do we make that happen? You know what? Dang it, I feel like I'm getting older, doctor. Can you stop me from doing that?" And I know there's some billionaires out there who are doing that, and they're doing cryogenic treatments, and they're doing all these weird things. They're trying to live forever. But until that technology is here, that's just not possible. We are mortal. And, at one day, we will no longer be among the living. And that's just the way it is, right? But if you want to live as well and as long as you can to do the things you want to do, there's things to involve yourself in. If you want to engage in business practices that are going to net you profit and you want to do the things you want to do that, there may be some practices you want to stay away from that maybe aren't in the best furtherance of that profit and overly expose you. But for the exposure that's necessary to do the business you want to do, here's ways we can mitigate the risks inherent in there to ensure that the levels of incidents that you do see are extremely fewer. Even world-class athletes get heart attacks, have strokes, break their limbs. More so than I ever have. I am a very unhealthy person on paper, but I'll tell you what, I haven't broken, my knees. I haven't, had heart attack. I haven't had stroke. I haven't had any of these things, but there are people who are out there who are athletes who are going and doing things, man, I'd love to be doing. And I probably could if I went and adopted a lot of their practices and things. But do I think, oh, wow, well, I'm glad I'm not, a world-class, bicyclist because, some of them get heart attacks and nearly die doing that. Well, no, I don't, because that's not what I would associate with that. That's just not how it works. Oh, why weren't they impenetrable? Why weren't they immortal? Why weren't they untouched by health maladies? It's the wrong question to be asking. And so to circle back what I was saying, with Microsoft and with any company, it is not reasonable to expect them to answer the question, well, why aren't we unhackable? Why aren't we, untouchable as far as security concerns go? You have to kind of take things on a case by case basis. Now, Microsoft has had some pretty embarrassing security lapses, I would say, and definitely deserve the ridicule and definitely deserve those things. But what did they do in response, right? So everything is layers. Everything is, what did we do once we knew what we knew? And to me, when you know you have vulnerabilities and issues and you go and fix them, that's a sign of good security practice. And they're doing what we all should be doing, right? When's the last time you fixed that many critical vulnerabilities and issues and found 0 days in your products and things? When's the last time you were one of the most used software manufacturers in the world, in the universe? Because we know Outlook also apparently tends to crash around the moon at some point. Again, little bits of fun we get to throw at Microsoft. But that's not at all what you came to hear. That's just a little side nugget on the AI track. We're going to talk about Delve. So that's what you came here for. That's what I put in the title for this. And that's what I ultimately prepared for in my little handy-dandy notebook on this. And so this is not new news. Nothing here I'm talking about. You aren't going to be able to go onto Substack or Y Combinator or other places. The Tech Report, TechCrunch, the Hacker News. All these different places have released these types of stories. This is really more of sometime in March happening. And I'm just going to be more so bringing you up to speed on kind of where we're at and some of the more concerning elements of this story. So Delve, a little background on Delve. Delve is an AI startup. An AI startup from an MIT grad, or a couple MIT grads, I believe. And they got degrees in artificial intelligence from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And one of the problems that they saw that they were going to solve was, hey, you know what, dang it, it takes entirely too long for customers and people to go through audits for the SOC 2 and ISO 27001 assessments and audits And I know there's an auditor or an assessor somewhere that is screaming right now because they're listening to this and going, SOC 2 isn't an audit, or whatever the case may be. I forget which it is. It's an assessment, or it's an attestation, or it's it's a report. It's not an audit. You don't get what is it? Either certified or compliant. There is like HIPAA. HIPAA's the one. Oh, you're not HIPAA compliant. There is no HIPAA compliance. GDPR. There is no GDPR compliance. There is no certifying body for HIPAA. There is no certifying body for GDPR. You're either breaking it or you're not, and you're found guilty or you're not. So it's nothing to do with compliance from a compliance framework standpoint. Like, you're found to be HIPAA compliant. You've just not found to be breaking HIPAA laws yet. Is really, you are innocent until you're proven guilty is basically the way the justice system works in that case. But in places like SOC 2 and ISO, you actually have to attest to your status and attest to how you are meeting certain standards or frameworks, and someone has to go and independently verify the evidence you've provided for the controls that you're mapping to, and say, yes, these evidence points seem to indicate, a good coverage. And SOC 2 has two types of reports. You have type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is, are controls in place? Yes, controls in place. And then type 2 starts going and saying, are those controls effective? So usually you start on your SOC 2 type 1. Controls are in place. At a time much later, you come back and you get your SOC 2 type 2. So then they can look back over that period of time and they can look and see, are these controls effective as the control? And so they'll go and show that, yes, you have been following indeed your controls, and give attestations as to that. And ISO 27001, very much the same thing. They look and see the evidence of what's going on. I've been through SOC 2 type 2 and ISO 27001, and I've had to provide evidence for those frameworks before, and they get persnickety, and they will ask follow-up questions, and it is time consuming. From the time someone comes to you and says, hey, we want our product to be ISO 27001 certified, or we want to be SOC 2 type 2 certified or attested, we want to have this, it takes you about a year to do it. It really does, of really rigorous work, and talking to a lot of people. Usually what you end up doing is you bring in a company, an audit firm, usually, or somebody else to prepare you. They usually aren't CPAs themselves, or maybe they are, but they're not CPAs, but they're people who have been, making themselves ready for these things in the past, and they're going to help you become ready. So they'll do a readiness assessment, and they'll take a look at the framework, and they'll map what you're doing and help you prepare for that. So it's kind of like your tutor. They're helping you get ready for this assessment. Because if you just go and ask for the assessment and they come and then you're just kind of all over the place and not able to provide your evidence and not able to provide these things, it's not going to go well. You may need to go and modify policies, create policies. You may need to go and create processes and then figure out what evidence are you going to generate for those processes, and make sure there's something in place there to generate that, and then generate it. So you want to make sure all that's mapped. You want to make sure that's all there. It's a lot of manual work. And in part, that's kind of the point, is that you go through the work of actually, creating and putting in place these controls so that you can show people that you are implementing controls and you're following them. Of course, compliance isn't the end all be all. There's a lot of ways you can scope these to make sure it only applies to such a limited subset of your systems, and doesn't apply to these important things over here, because you don't want people knowing about that. Those tactics do exist in the assessment world, of course. But it is showing some level of effort in providing that. So what AI what Delve is trying to do is they're trying to provide an AI tool to make all of this a lot easier and faster. And how fast can it be? Like a day. I'm not kidding. You can go from having no policies, no evidence, and you can get certified tomorrow with a report that's signed by some kind of auditor. All claiming, meanwhile, to be AI, all claiming to integrate with your different systems and things to pull the evidence that's needed and everything, all claiming that. Meanwhile, well, we actually can read the reports. So I'm not exactly sure how this person got a hold of all these reports. What seems to be the case is that, this person essentially found all of these reports that were just in a spreadsheet somewhere that was publicly available. And this person went through and, grabbed that spreadsheet, went through all of the public facing Google links that basically had the, as long as you've got this link, you've got access in a spreadsheet, and just cycled through them all, downloaded all these reports from, I think there were close to 500 reports that were supposed to be SOC2, Type 1, Type 2, ISO27001, and other types of reports across like 200 or so customers. And a lot of these customers are also startups. A lot of them are AI startups, actually. So this is funny, where we've actually got a little bit of an issue where, AI, like any new technology, and this is true of any technology. There's a lot of security technologies out there like this. There's snake oil that are making a lot of claims, and they're faking it until they make it. There's a lot of companies out there like that. And AI is no different. Only AI is even easier to bring about now and claim something as AI when it's not really. But there are so many of these other AI companies that have used Delve because the startup, and especially technology startup sector, is a bit incestuous. They all kind of know each other. They get to know each other. They become customers of each other's products to kind of ramp up and make, kind of trade all this money between each other and VC capital. And they kind of just trade it amongst each other and make it look like they're all making lots of revenue. Meanwhile, really, they're just trading money between each other. They're almost like a closed system in many cases for a while, where they're just trading money back and forth. Probably some external customers as well that have nothing to do with the startup world, but you get my point. There's a lot of not self-serving, but inter-serving going on here. And certainly you can see that in this customer listing. And in this customer listing, you can go through and you can read all these reports, and the dump of the reports still exist, and you can go read them. And I've read a few of them. And essentially, when you look at them, you go, wow, this is like 95% the exact same report. Rough number. At least 80%, the same report. Now, it's important to know that report templates are important, right? You want to be able to reproduce work, effectively. And so having a good report template is a good thing. But usually report templates don't have opinions, management statements, stuff that would actually be custom to every single firm you go and audit. Wouldn't have those pre-generated across all of your customer base, to where everybody essentially has the same management statement. Everyone has the exact same controls statements. Everyone has the same evidence, down to the same board meeting minutes. How do 5 different AI firms that have nothing to do with each other have the exact same board meeting that happened with the exact same minutes that took place? Well, I'll tell you why. So I'll have a link down in the doobly-doo, and actually I'll go ahead and put a link in the chat here so you can see what's going on. But for those who are watching live. But essentially, this whistleblower known as Deepdelver went through and talks about this person's experience. This person is either a former customer or a former potential customer who essentially BS checked Delve rather, very, very carefully. And makes a series of accusations about Delve. And as I've read through this report and the evidence and what they've got on this, they've gone into investigating even the audit firms that Delve has on their back end working in this ecosystem. And the evidence looks pretty good. So while I'm not going to go through every single little accusation and everything, here's some of the big things that I really got from this. And what it should kind of tell us about any AI technology that, is being sold to you, and, what you should be thinking about when you're dealing with these AI firms, what should you really be concerned about. And we'll also talk about some other AI fraud that has existed as well. So one of the things that this company Delve claims to be is an AI company. So usually when I think AI companies is you might give them a bunch of material. It could be prompt material. So it could be, hey, here's a picture. Tell me what you think about it. Right? And so when I think about, what I would expect out of an AI report for, some kind of compliance report would be, hey, for, I don't know all the ISO controls by heart, but for ISO 27001, control A.5, 8.5 or something, right? Here's the evidence I'm providing this. This is a screenshot of our, endpoint antivirus solution and showing that, all 20,000, devices are covered. And here's the inventory of those 20,000 devices, or a sample of them. And what the AI tool I would expect would do would go and review the control and understand the intention and meaning of the control, go and understand your network diagram, and go and understand the other parts of your environment that you've provided for your evidence, and be able to wrap all that together and then go look at the screenshots or outputs that you've provided, and then review that, and then give some kind of statement that describes how this evidence does or doesn't meet or fall short of the control requirements, right? So it would do that and make some kind of statement as to that effect. And it might be unique for, most of these should be unique per customer, because not every customer environment is the same way. Not everyone should have the same processes, etc. And so one of the complaints that this Deepdelver makes is that, hey, you have to manually upload all of this evidence. Well, that would be the case regardless. Like, you've got to that you just kind of do. The AI isn't going to magically know everything about your environment. Of course, there's also a bunch of integrations they claim to have that apparently don't actually integrate into any of your tools at all. They're fake integrations. So there's some more reading on that to go look at. There's a handful of integrations that look like they exist but still require a lot of manual uploads of information for it to do anything with. So what's the point of an integration when you've got to manually do things anyway? But what it does is not really artificial intelligence. Maybe they had an AI write a canned report. Maybe that's what the AI was at some point. But that's the most they ever did, because all they offer are pre-gen reports. Not only that, they offer pre-gen evidence. Yes, that is correct. One of the things that you may want in your compliance framework is evidence that your board meets on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis or whenever your board meets to discuss and review security and risk registers and things like that. So you'd want board meeting minutes that show, this risk register was reviewed on this date, et cetera, et cetera. They just have a precanned pregenerated, Delve supplied meeting minute copy that they offer and pre-generate into your Delve view as a customer when you go and look to see what's going, to go and kind of put in place what you need for this. So it really just amounts to fake evidence. So one of the things that they do is they, like I said, prefabricated fake board meeting minutes. And so, when you go and look and see that multiple companies essentially have the same meeting minutes that say review and approval of previous meeting minutes, financial performance and budget, risk management and compliance. So there's your thing that says, there you go. We've got risk management. We're doing something with compliance there. So we've met some kind of control. Board meeting, create a company board that meets twice a year to discuss the company's direction, conduct at least one meeting. This is a recurring event that needs to happen every year. Well, that's your control. Well, you've got a meeting minute, and so you can put that in. But everybody has the same meeting minutes because it's all just pre-generated and put in there. Now, one could claim that, those are pre-generated examples for you to use. And indeed, there's a lot of times when compliance companies will go and say, you need to have certain policies in place that cover these control frameworks. Here are some sample policies, sample processes that are starting points for you to go through and do the heavy work of modifying. But the whole point of this AI platform was to essentially remove all of that manual work. They've got these pre-generated, so we'll just use them. And that's what a lot of their customers did, is they just clicked next and said, we'll submit that. In fact, about the only thing that Delve says they seem to actually find was unique between all the different customers was their network maps. It seems that the network maps were the things that were fairly unique. So everybody has a unique network map. What's also sucks is that those network maps are now public. So everyone now has a network map of their AWS and other things. Companies AI makes problem, different companies AI solves problems, cite an AI generated evidence, job security. Yes, you got it. You absolutely figured it out. Oh, man. Okay, well, who's looking at these reports? Someone signed off on all 200 and some odd of these reports. Who all signed off on these reports? Now, Delve also claims to have independent auditors. They've got a network of all these US-based, and it's very important they claim these are US-based audit firms, and these are auditors. Actually, they reference American shell companies that have no actual physical presence in America. They are virtual offices, virtually non-existent offices, where nobody's there, who are related to the company. And in fact, all the people who seem to be related to the audit work are actually in India. They just claim to be owners of these American-based shell companies. But they're actually over in America, and in fact, or over in India. And in fact, he's done a lot of sleuthing work. Deepdelver has done a lot of sleuthing work into who are these entities and who are these people and who are the auditors behind all these and how are they working together. And, when you look at some of this. It is, like I said before, incestuous. That, delve, like for instance, down at a certain point, they're actually showing maps of how these all people work together. And so you've got this person called Jayshree Janaduta, a non-CPA SOC 2 and ISO auditor. Non-CPA SOC 2 auditor, that's already a problem. But Delve works with that person, who works with a Kumar Gaurav, who manages A Corp, who has audits performed by Jayshree Janaduta, and Delve partners as an auditor A Corp. And A Corp is actually based in India, not America. Gradient also is managed by Kumar Gaurav, who has a relationship with Jayshree Janaduta, who performs the audits for Gaurav, who happens to be the audit partner also of Delve, and does the preferred ISO auditing for Delve. So, essentially it all maps back to, or quite a few of these may map to, the same auditor. And so the same person's name is on all the audits, even though they're coming from these different audit companies. And that makes it even weirder. Hey, you've seen the same board minutes, I mean exact same board minutes, as evidence in, okay, maybe after 200 reports, they all start running together, and, maybe two of the reports, you might be like, I'd maybe forgive you that you saw a report with certain board meeting minutes. 50 reports later, you see the exact same board minutes and don't think, where have I seen that before? Because let's say, board meeting minutes can be very dry, very high level, very nondescript, and sometimes they'll just all look similar and whatever, and you might be forgiven for not noticing. But after 50 of these reports, and all of the board meeting minutes are identical, shouldn't someone be looking and going, wait, why does every board here do the meeting in the exact same way and have the exact same agenda, have the exact same votes? This doesn't make much sense. What's going on here? Any auditor worth their, not just their salt, the shirt on their back, would go, hey, wait a minute here. I don't think I'm comfortable putting my name to this. Maybe I need to go and self-report this and say, whoa, everybody, I need to pull back and I need to stop doing this. I would imagine by the fifth audit you do, you look at this and go, that doesn't make much sense. So they claim to have all these independent auditors and this network of auditors, and actually it really just turns into they've got a handful of companies that all use the exact same people, or a lot of the same people, to do the work, and it's all America shell companies, but they're actually just India-based rubber stamp paper mills. So the conclusions and findings are all generated prior to customer inputs, and evidence is also a big issue, right? Essentially, all of that evidence you see when you go into the Delve dashboard and starting your audit for SOC 2 or ISO 27001, all of the things are pre-generated for you. You can essentially just click next, 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 put in your network map, put in a couple other things, and then you're off to the races. You're done. There's like 4 or 5 things that are custom you put in, and then you're done. So maybe an hour of work, and then the next day the auditor has reviewed and magically made you pass, right? So basically auditors are rubber stamping those reports, and they've either not read them, and so their signature is useless because they haven't actually read and they're actually lying that they've read the reports, or they know that these reports can't be true. They know that these evidences or evidence that's been provided is not true evidence. They know that. They have to know that if they have read. And if they haven't read it, their signature's fraudulent anyway. So essentially every single one of those leaked reports is a fraudulent report, which by extension means that any firm that has used Delve to complete an ISO audit or a SOC 2 audit and create an attestation report has committed a fraudulent action. And under HIPAA law, under GDPR law, would be subject to making misrepresentations to various entities and would be subject to penalties. And you might forget an up-and-coming, you might forgive an up-and-coming, startup business person, entrepreneur, not knowing how all these frameworks work, and they trusted this company to have provided it with what it said it was going to do, an AI-generated and guided, thing, and this is all legit, and this is all run by, I took them at their face value, I took them at their word. At the same time, if you're an AI company, and you are AI experts, you should know something doesn't smell right here. This doesn't look like AI. This doesn't feel like AI. This isn't truly what AI is doing. And I believe I have lost my face. Just a moment here. I've probably lost my face for a while. Why don't you people tell me these things? Pardon me for a moment. I got to get my face back. Here we go. Got my face back. I just noticed I've refreshed. I have the stream for those that don't know how streaming works, but I've got my OBS studio over here on this part of my monitor, and then I've got the live stream here. I've got my camera that has the has my monitor on it there, so I can see what I look like. And I'm moving up here, and then I'm suddenly noticing I'm not moving here. So hopefully it was only for like a couple minutes. You probably heard me on audio though. It's just my camera and the OBS sometimes hangs up on a frame. Sorry about that. So, you have all these AI companies that have been using this AI, this supposedly AI company for their ISO audits. So at some point you really have to go and say, you guys are supposed to be the AI experts here, and you couldn't figure out this was BS. That doesn't sound right. Even if you are not an ISO expert, a SOC 2 expert, hire experts, man. Hire people who are actually going to advise you and tell you this is what you should do. Do not go to a technology company to solve your legal problem, to solve your compliance and attestation problems with magic genie in a box, is basically what they were selling. Now, Delve has come out, and they've made quite a few statements about what's going on, and it's quite embarrassing, the kind of twisting and turning of fact that they're claiming. They actually misrepresent a lot of the claims that are made in this in this write-up, and they don't go into a lot of detail about how their system works and how it actually is AI, how it actually works with its audit firms, and doesn't really explain how their audit firms really are US-based. They choose to go after very odd, weird details that actually don't matter in what Deepdelver has actually revealed here. So they're not going after the toughest, roughest, most substantiated arguments. They're going after side quests that no one ever does, that no one ever cares about. Stuff I've even glossed over. I don't care. They even to the point of claiming that oh, hey, our reports are custom. Most reports are custom, and they basically are saying, yeah, we do provide pre-canned. It's very common to have templates, and very common to have some pre-canned or example policies, example things. Correct, but you don't allow your customers to send the example files as if they are true, and you definitely don't have your auditors attest to the example evidence. Like, that's probably a basic control that should exist, right? And magically, there's 0 exceptions and 0 incidents and 0 issues found by all the auditors across this. And so, one of the things that they talk about is that, Delve makes a defense that they refute the claim that refuting claim that most reports are custom, the exceptions. He says, just to make sure Delve won't get the chance to cherry pick a report to show how their custom the reports are, I'm going to highlight the one report in the leak set that is different. Duo's Edge, one particular report that stands out, and of which having the information leaked is a serious matter since it is part of a publicly traded company, is Duo's Edge, subsidiary of Duo's Technology Incorporated. It's actually traded on the NASDAQ with DUOT. They substituted the default Section 3 with their own version that's a lot more detailed and seems to be actually accurate. But they make misrepresentations. What is interesting about this report is that it still has the exact same controls and auditor conclusion as all the other reports. Duo's has a ton of security measures in their company that aren't just tested for in SOC 2 report, despite being described in their Section 3. Another strong indicator of rubber stamping. So let me read that again. Duo's has a ton of security measures in their company that just aren't tested for in the SOC 2 report. Again, SOC 2 recognizes the controls you state and then says, yes, they have these controls in place. That's what it's meant there to do. And so they listed a bunch of controls that weren't in the templated conclusions and findings. And those conclusions and findings magically don't have any of those controls that are being listed in the Section 3. The Section 3 really gives you the map for what you should be looking for in the conclusions. Okay, they say they have this. Do they actually have this? Everything that's mentioned in Section 3 should be listed down in the examiner notes later in the report. What this means is that Duo's Edge claims that they were audited for the availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy trust services criteria, TSC. Those are criteria separate from the default security TSC, which encompasses the common criteria and require their own controls, tests, and conclusions. As can be seen in Duo's Edge's report, the only controls listed in Section 4 are part of the security common criteria. Furthermore, only tests the auditor performed were on the security criteria. No other tests or test conclusions are present in the report. That means that Duo's Edge, in contradiction to repeated claims, does not have a SOC 2 report that covers availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy, despite publicly communicating that they do. So Duo's Edge has been claiming that they have a report that for SOC 2 that says they have these controls in place. The report doesn't say that at all, which, I'm sorry, anybody who has audited them should have known that, because they should have read the report. I think this also uncovers a bit of the auditing and compliance underbelly, which is that nobody reads the reports. They just say, you got one. Good. And they call it a day. So writing the reports are difficult, reading the reports are difficult, and nobody wants to do it. So another company misrepresenting their security without having adopted Dell's default Section 3 garbage this time, audited by an idiot rubber stamp firm that doesn't check anything, facilitated by a platform that creates fake evidence. I'm not even sure who to blame here. Delve, Duo's Edge, or A Corp. Audit fraud and misrepresentation of security is already serious for small non-public companies, but it's a whole different ballgame altogether when it comes publicly traded companies. SEC, are you paying attention? They very well might be. I've popped the link down in the chat. It will be down in the doobly-doo when this posts, but you can go take a look. This is a very, 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 very detailed write-up. What's fun is that Delve claims that this was an AI-generated email sent to Delve customers, and they're like, "Oh, this was an AI-generated email." Meanwhile, they claim to be an AI company. So what are they saying? AI-generated things are bad? Well, then you're claiming your company is bad. First and foremost, I personally assure you that you are in compliance and there is no impact to the validity of your audit report. We take the accuracy of our compliance reports very seriously, and we know many customers use them as a core pillar of trust to prove compliance to F500 and federal institutions, Fortune 500. Secondly, after investigating the situation, we determined that human error resulted in a document being made public. That was the spreadsheet. We also determined that no external party gained access to the Delve platform integrations or any databases where sensitive data resides. Okay, so so what you're claiming is nobody hacked your systems in order to gain any of this. The scope of this situation is limited to the aforementioned document. So you expose your document publicly and then claim that this document, they basically go on later to claim that this person hacked them and that this person didn't. They were able to find a publicly available document on Google Drive. And then all the documents that were linked in that Google Drive Excel sheet had all these reports. Security and compliance are core to how we operate at Delve. We maintain strong access controls, perform regular interval reviews across our systems, and conduct quarterly penetration testing. Now, is that in their audit? Is that in their SOC 2 controls? Has an auditor signed off on that? We have taken action to reduce the likelihood of a similar event in the future, including tightening default document sharing settings, additional review. Okay, We're working hard to create a world-class compliance experience, and if you'd like to talk further regarding any information above and about our trusted audit process, I'm more than happy to personally connect. Please simply reply to this email. So trying to make a sale out of this whole situation. Karun Kaushik, the CEO and co-founder of Delve. One could argue that the spreadsheet amounts to a database, but a spreadsheet isn't a database. So I would say that that's not true. I was going to see if I could quickly find anything about what Delve was saying about their response. Real quick here, I'll just look live. This won't look good on recording, but on stream, we're doing it live. Delve statement. Yeah, so response to misleading claims. And you know what? I'll put this in the doobly-doo too, just out of transparency. I think it's important. Delve does not conduct audits or issue fake SOC 2 reports. So, correct. Delve, maybe from a legal perspective, Delve can claim to not conduct the audits. They are maybe doing readiness assisting. Nor do they issue fake SOC 2 reports. Again, legally, they may be able to claim these are real SOC 2 reports. So these are reporting to be, SOC 2, real SOC 2 reports. But in reality, these do amount to fraudulent representations of people's environments. So in that way, they are fake SOC 2 reports. They are not true. They are fraudulent. They are not reviewed by auditors correctly. They are not reviewed. Or if they are reviewed, then those auditors need to face serious repercussions for, regardless they need to, but they need to face serious repercussions for their fraudulent signatures. Customers work with independent accredited auditors. The Substack inaccurately said Delve relies on Indian certification mills operating through front companies and cannot pass legitimate audits. This, too, is not accurate. Delve customers can opt to work with an auditor of their choosing or opt to work with one of Delve's network of independent accredited third-party audit firms. But none of them did work with any of their own third-party audit firms. They worked with your accredited third-party audit firms. These are established firms used broadly across the industry, including by other compliance platforms. That doesn't mean that those companies aren't basically front shell companies. So notice how they didn't address Their statements not at all address the concern that was raised that these are Indian certification mills operating through American front companies. That was never addressed. In fact, that turns out to be true. Standardization is inherent in compliance frameworks. The Substack inaccurately said Delve uses templates across the majority of reports. This is misleading. Most modern compliance platforms allow clients to adopt a fixed control set based on widely accepted standards set forth by AICPA, ISO, and more. As a result, the overlap in structure and language across reports is expected. Moreover, Delve uses templates provided by auditors, but we do not prescribe final reports. You do not prescribe final reports, but you have written the final report in effect. Because you pre-genned it, you allowed people to go with the defaults. Now, technically, that should be knowingly not creating a report in good faith, but you pre-genned and provided and did not do any checking to say, you know what, this looks like 99.9% the exact same thing that we wrote. This doesn't seem quite right. There should have been some differences besides company name, a network map, and maybe a small explanation of the management statement or something. Delve does not produce fake evidence. The Substack tried to make an issue out of the fact that Delve provides pre-filled board meeting minutes, policies, and forms, implying that some way that this leads to providing fake evidence. This too is false. Delve provides templates to help teams document their processes in accordance with compliance requirements, as do other compliance platforms. These are starting points only. Customers are responsible for reviewing, modifying, finalizing their own materials. Draft templates are not the same as pre-filled evidence, except that clearly in the evidence, they are producing your pre-filled evidence. And you are not catching that. And your trusted third-party auditors that are accredited are getting 200 instances of the exact same evidence and doing nothing to check that. How is that different? You're just claiming that, well, these people should have known, and these people should have known, and we're just processing, and we're not responsible. Who are we trying to fool? Delve is not a manual platform with no automation. The Substack inaccurately stated that Delve lacks automations. This is not true. He didn't say they lacked automation. Let's be clear about that. Go and read the Substack. He didn't say that they lack automation. They said that they have fake integrations. Very different. There are automations. You have to have automation in order to run a platform like this. Even running an HTTP request is an automation. You're not crafting that yourself, right? Automation is abstraction. So there has to be abstractions here. Of course. Of course. Delve supports 102 automated integrations and subservices, not just the 14 integrations as alleged in the Substack. But the evidence provided in the Substack shows that most of those, vast majority of those other integrations are not actually integrations. They're not effective. They don't do anything. Our product evolves every day. We're always looking to make improvements in the best services. Delve has grown to more than 1,700 customers. And given how competitive this industry is, attacks like this sadly come with the territory. Okay. I guess, maybe a link to your integrations hub and showing demonstrations of all, the different integrations and how they work. An open API documentation with it would be helpful. You should be doing that anyway in the course of you doing your work. We're actively investigating any leaks and are still reviewing the Substack. If there are more attacks to respond to, we will do so. And then they also made a video back in April 3rd, and I haven't watched the video. Part of what caught my eye on this is I saw another YouTuber, and I'll actually post him if I can think about it. Let me see if I can think, because I want to give credit to him because he brought this to my attention in my YouTube stream. Delve Fraud AI. Textual Chatter. That's right. Textual Chatter. Holla at ya. Textual Chatter. Oh, do I not get to put his name in there? Oh, man. All of y'all should go to Textual Chatter, and you should go give him a sub. He's been doing some really great YouTube work. But he and that channel goes and covers this exact same thing, and also talks about this very same thing. So this is HD and Cyber Shorty. But anyway, so their latest article in here also talks about setting the record straight on these anonymous attacks. Maintaining customer trust is central to everything we do, and they talk about how they're rebuilding our auditor network and removing firms that don't meet our standards. Yeah, we aren't knowingly putting the same person in 5 or so different firms and only doing audits with those firms, but claiming they're different firms, and we happen to know all these people, but we're changing our audit network. I'm sure they're just shifting their shell companies around. Offering complimentary re-audits. I mean, if a fake audit worked once, why not get another fake audit, right? And penetration tests to all active customers. I don't really see how a penetration test is gonna do anything. And being not a pen test company, like why would they do that? Halting any automation that interacts with audit workflows is what they're also doing. Halting any automation that interacts with audit workflows. Doesn't that mean you basically stopped all your integrations? Enhancing transparency in audit communications by ensuring direct communication lines between customers and their auditors. And that's a thing that I have a problem with, is why is that not a thing to begin with? Auditors should be having direct communications with the people they're auditing. They should be saying, even if there's a third party in the room to broker the conversation, there should be direct communication between an auditor and the group they're auditing at some point in the process. Has to be at some point in the process. Already that just screams illegitimacy. Making it unambiguously clear in the platform that templates, policy, board meetings, risk assessments are designed to be starting points only. Maybe you should put some controls in there that examine and see whether this is... Maybe you should use some AI to go and see the differences and similarities between the evidence you've supplied and the evidence the customer supplied, and if they're substantially the same and largely not unchanged, maybe it's not meant to be sent, and maybe you should be providing some warning saying, hey, we've noticed you've basically not changed this evidence at all. We recommend you change that, right? They're not getting the point. They're not understanding the issue. They're not understanding the point. And someone should probably prosecute these people. And I think this is part of what everybody hates in the technology sector, Silicon Valley, VC world. It is so... to have the audacity, to have the straight audacity and charisma. The charisma scores you have to roll. To be the person who looks people straight in the eye. The psychopathy or the sociopathy you have to be to look people square in the eye and smile at them and lie to their face. And then when you're caught in your lies, to look them square in the face and hand on the desk and, serious face, like, this is a tough time as this company. And to have the audacity to try and portray yourself as the victim, the type of character you have to make millions of dollars off a lie is astounding, and yet they make millions of dollars. Propped up on lies and enriched, probably by fellow liars. Let's be honest. It's disgusting. But that's our industry. There's definitely been snake oil and fake tools and false promises and fake it till you make it. We've seen it in AI before. Was it Facebook or Amazon? I think it was Amazon shop fake AI. Yeah, it was grocery stores where you just walk in and you walk out with stuff. Basically, it turns out that that all of a sudden that it was just all a bunch of Indians in a room watching cameras and coming up with your report later, your receipt later. And it was an army of over 1,000 workers in India who were working as remote cashiers, watching what you were seeing. It wasn't AI. Now, there may have been some AI assistants helping them identify the things, and then maybe you could say, oh, it was human in the loop. It was human in the loop, AI, which, okay, I could buy that maybe. But when you're saying it is all artificial intelligence, and this is all automated, and there's no humans involved, and it just knows that you picked up that Snickers bar, you picked up some deodorant, you picked up a cabbage, you picked up, I don't know what we're cooking here, but we picked up some tomatoes and you walked out and you owe us $25. Yeah. That's and the privacy concerns also with, looking at live cameras and, tracking people and watching people is also a bit scary. But Amazon actually had to abandon their grocery stores where you just walk out with stuff, because it turns out after it turns out its AI was powered by 100 or 1,000 human contractors. It was all smoke and mirrors. And that was back in April 2nd of 2024. So it seems like every April we have some AI tomfoolery to discuss. And so, yeah, that's, what should this tell us? Okay, so what should you be doing? You should really be watching your organization's AI purchasing or AI usage. And you should really tap into what makes this AI. Walk me through how this is AI. What is AI about this? How is your AI system set up? How are you, putting your various control points together? If they're not able to answer questions about, we use Llama, we use Anthropic, we use Claude, we use, OpenAI Enterprise or whatever, that's not enough. We need to understand what you're doing. We're not asking for anything proprietary, but we need to understand how our interaction with the website or your platform or your tool or your portal at some point is touched by an artificial intelligence and is providing us some kind of result that matches the claims that you're making. We need to understand how that works. You need to really dig into that and audit it and take time, because there are fakers like this out here. And there are fake AI companies out there that are just trying to scam people. And the thing is you don't get to have long histories unless, you're Microsoft building stuff, but that's slow. Microsoft and Cisco and all these people incubate companies for this purpose because they can't move fast enough. It's almost like standing up your own skunk works, really. You just go out there and stand up an incubation company, have them go build the thing, prove its viability, and then go buy it. That's how that's worked. But most companies and most firms don't have that. So how do you determine? I mean, these folks are VC backed. You'd expect some VC firm took a look at this place, right? So you'd imagine there's some kind of trust there, but that may not be the case. So anyway, those are my thoughts for the day. Just be careful out there, right? And be careful what we're trying to use AI for. And be careful that, is it really better that AI is doing something than a human? Is it really better to cut this corner? sorry, I will say this one more time. The reason why this tool in particular is so attractive and platforms like this are so attractive is because the audit process is difficult. The burden of evidence that you have to produce, especially when you're starting from essentially no controls or very ill-defined controls to within a year you need to have controls in place, stood up, and evidence that they're in place. That is hard work, and you can't just AI that away. And that should be fairly obvious that that's not a thing you can just AI away. So if it sounds too good to be true, maybe don't do it. Maybe don't do it. But hey, it was great having some translator 3197 on the stream today. So thank you very much for coming and seeing me. And you know, I'll catch you in the comments. I do read comments. You know, probably in the next couple weeks you'll see you know, Opus AI comes in, or Opus Clips comes and clips all my streams here and puts them into shorts for the daily posts. Although if I keep doing weekly live streams, you know, you won't see. It'll be months before you actually see, you know, the video in the shorts. So maybe I have to move to double posts per day or something on shorts to try and make sure all the content can get put in. But I'll see you in the comments. I do respond. I do see the comments. There's sometimes I get some spam, but I appreciate the engagement and the help on the channel nonetheless, but I will engage with your comments. I do like them, and you know, give me a like, give me a comment, give me a subscribe, share me out on LinkedIn, YouTube, Blue Sky, share me out on any place where you do business or that you think this is helpful or interesting, and you know, hopefully you found something interesting in all of this. But you know, stay skeptical out there. Healthy bits of skepticism, you know, not necessarily cynicism, but skepticism. Be skeptical, you know, and think more rationally, and just challenge people on their BS. So, and do so in a humane way. You know, treat everyone gently. I still want to treat people with best of intentions, even in sales cycle, although that's getting harder to do. But I do want to treat people with the best of intentions, assumed at the front. So have that healthy bit of skepticism, but be gentle with people. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.